Listen closely, because the truth is often hidden in the places we are most afraid to look. You have been told to hide your weaknesses, to mask your mistakes, to present a perfect version of yourself to the world. But perfection is a lie. It is a cage built by fear, a story that convinces you that your flaws make you less worthy. I am here to tell you that your flaws are not your enemies. Your mistakes are not a sentence against you. They are the compass pointing to the parts of yourself you have ignored, the cracks through which your light can shine. You have been walking around pretending to be invincible, but invincibility is an illusion. Every time you deny your fault, you are denying your humanity. Every time you pretend vulnerability is weakness, you are ignoring the source of real strength. Real strength comes from seeing yourself clearly, from saying to yourself, I am not perfect, and that is okay. You must stop running from the parts of you that scare you. Those parts carry lessons, growth, and authenticity. Embrace them. Welcome them like old friends who have been waiting for you to notice them. The world will not give you permission to be vulnerable. The world will try to shame you for your mistakes. And that is exactly why you must embrace them. When you own your fault, when you look it in the eyes without flinching, you become free. Free from the chains of shame, free from the pressure to perform, free to live fully without hiding. Vulnerability is not an admission of weakness. It is the courage to be real, to let others see the raw edges of your soul, and to move forward anyway. Imagine for a moment that your mistakes are like the cracks in a clay vessel. The cracks are not flaws to cover. They are the channels through which light enters, through which life flows. Each fault, each moment of shame, each vulnerability is an opportunity to let your humanity shine brighter than you ever imagined. The people who inspire you the most are not those who hide their faults. They are those who show up, imperfect and unafraid, and let their humanity connect with others. It is scary, yes. It is uncomfortable, yes. But discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. Stop hiding behind the mask of being unbreakable. Stop pretending that your mistakes define you. They do not. What defines you is the courage to face them, to learn from them, and to walk forward with your heart open. When you embrace your fault, you embrace growth. When you embrace vulnerability, you embrace life in its fullest, richest form. Listen carefully, because this is where real change begins. Your faults, the things you have been taught to hide, the mistakes that make your heart heavy with shame, are not failures, not in the way you think. Society has conditioned you to see fault as weakness, to believe that a mistake is a permanent mark on your worth. But the truth is, your faults are not the enemy. They are the raw materials of your growth, the very things that can shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more authentic than you have ever imagined. Every person you admire, every individual who has truly achieved something meaningful, has a history of mistakes. They have faltered, stumbled, and faced moments of doubt. The difference is not that they never failed. The difference is that they chose to see their faults not as endings, but as beginnings. Each fault carries a lesson if you are willing to look beyond the initial sting of embarrassment or regret. It is easy to feel defeated by mistakes, to let them weigh you down, to tell yourself that you are not enough. But that is exactly what keeps most people from growing. Your faults are signals pointing you to the areas where your life, your mindset, or your actions need attention. They are guides showing you where change is needed, where learning is possible, and where transformation is waiting. When you embrace your faults, you stop wasting energy hiding from yourself and from the world. Imagine how exhausting it is to pretend, to craft an image of perfection that never truly exists. Every fault you ignore, every mistake you bury under layers of denial, is energy drained from the person you could become. But when you face your mistakes directly, you reclaim that energy. You turn what once felt like a burden into a tool, a stepping stone toward your better self. The act of embracing your fault is an act of courage because it requires honesty, humility, and self-compassion. It requires you to admit, yes, I have made mistakes, and yes, I am human, but I am capable of learning and growing. Your faults also shape your perspective and empathy. When you recognize your own flaws, you begin to understand that everyone else carries theirs too. You begin to see that mistakes are universal, that no one is immune, and that judgment often stems from fear or ignorance. This realization allows you to approach others with compassion rather than criticism, with understanding rather than expectation. You become a person who can lead not through perfection, but through authenticity. Someone who inspires others not by pretending to have it all together, but by showing that growth comes from acknowledging faults and moving forward despite them. Another essential aspect of embracing your faults is the power it gives you over fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of rejection all shrink when you no longer view faults as disasters. Instead of running from your mistakes, you confront them, learn from them, and use them to fuel your next steps. Every failure becomes data, every misstep becomes a lesson, and every flaw becomes a marker for improvement. The moment you stop fearing your own faults is the moment you step into a new kind of freedom. You are no longer bound by the need to be perfect. You can take risks, pursue your dreams, and express yourself fully because you understand that mistakes are not the end. They are the path. And here is something remarkable. Embracing your faults creates resilience. Life will always challenge you, and life will always present situations where you stumble. But when you have made peace with your imperfections, those moments no longer define you. They teach you, shape you, and give you strength. You stop being controlled by shame and start being guided by growth. You learn that the real power lies not in avoiding mistakes, but in how you respond to them, how you carry their lessons forward, and how you allow them to transform you into someone stronger than before. So, take a deep breath and look at your faults with open eyes and a brave heart. Recognize them, understand them, and accept them as essential parts of your journey. They are not signs of weakness, they are invitations to rise, to evolve, and to step into your potential with courage and authenticity. Your faults are not your enemies. They are your teachers, your guides, and your keys to becoming the person you are meant to be. Vulnerability is a word that many people fear, as if showing it is a sign of weakness or incompetence. From a young age, we are told to hide our feelings, to protect ourselves from judgment, to appear strong no matter what. But the truth is the opposite. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the purest measure of courage, the quiet but powerful strength that allows you to face life honestly, to connect deeply, and to grow beyond the limitations of fear. When you embrace your vulnerability, you are stepping into a space that is uncomfortable, yes, but also transformative. You are acknowledging that you are human, that you have fears, doubts, and imperfections, and that showing them does not diminish you. On the contrary, it elevates you, because it takes immense courage to be authentic in a world that constantly rewards pretense. Think about the moments in your life when you held back, when you refused to show your feelings, when you tried to appear invincible. Perhaps it was in a relationship where you wanted to speak your truth but feared rejection. Perhaps it was in your work where you wanted to take a risk or admit a mistake but worried about being judged. Each time you conceal your vulnerability, you create a barrier between yourself and life. You isolate yourself from opportunities for connection, growth, and self-discovery. Vulnerability is the bridge that links who you are inside with the world outside. It allows your experiences to be authentic, your relationships to be meaningful, and your journey to be fully lived. The paradox of vulnerability is that while it makes you feel exposed, it also gives you power. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, You give permission for others to see your humanity, and in doing so, you create genuine trust. People are drawn to authenticity because they recognize it in themselves. No one admires perfection as much as they admire honesty. When you speak your truth, admit your fears, or acknowledge your mistakes, you are demonstrating strength. You are saying to yourself and to the world, I am here fully, I am real, and I am willing to face whatever comes with courage. That is the essence of vulnerability, and that is why it is not weakness. It is bravery in its purest form. Embracing vulnerability also opens the door to learning. When you admit what you do not know or acknowledge where you have failed, you allow yourself to grow. Life does not reward those who hide from mistakes. It rewards those who confront them, learn from them, and move forward. Vulnerability is the first step toward this kind of growth because it requires you to see yourself without disguise. You see the areas where you can improve, the emotions you have been avoiding, and the truths you have been afraid to face. Without vulnerability, growth is limited, shallow, and often superficial. With it, every mistake, every fear, every challenge becomes an opportunity to evolve. Another crucial aspect of vulnerability is its role in connection. Human beings are wired for connection, but connection cannot exist where there is pretense. You may have countless acquaintances, but real relationships, the ones that matter, the ones that nourish your soul, require openness. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you invite others to do the same. You create a space where honesty, empathy, and mutual respect can flourish. It is in these spaces that love, trust, and collaboration are born. Vulnerability is the soil in which meaningful relationships grow, because it allows people to see and accept each other as they truly are, without masks or facades. It is natural to fear vulnerability because it exposes you to potential pain. Rejection, criticism, and disappointment are real possibilities, but the greater risk lies in hiding. The greater loss lies in never showing your true self, in living a life constrained by fear. Every time you embrace vulnerability, you are choosing courage over comfort, authenticity over pretense, and growth over stagnation. You are training yourself to be resilient, to trust in your own strength, and to navigate life with honesty and integrity. So take a moment to recognize that vulnerability is not a flaw. It is a mark of bravery, a gateway to deeper connections, and a path to genuine self-mastery. When you embrace your vulnerability, you no longer need to hide from your emotions, your mistakes, or your imperfections. You become free to live fully, to love deeply, and to step into your life with authenticity and courage. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the essence of strength, the heart of growth, and the foundation of a life truly lived. Owning your mistakes is one of the most powerful steps you can take on the path to personal growth and authentic living. Most of us have been taught to run from our errors, to hide them behind excuses, or to blame others when things go wrong. It feels safer to deny responsibility, to pretend that nothing went wrong, or to hope that nobody notices. But this denial is heavy, and it keeps you trapped in a cycle of shame, fear, and stagnation. When you finally choose to own your mistakes, something transformative happens. You stop giving power to fear and guilt, and you reclaim control over your life. Admitting your faults is not easy, but it is liberating because it allows you to see yourself clearly, without illusions or pretenses. The first step in owning your mistakes is honesty. You must look at your actions and their consequences without judgment or avoidance. This is not about self-punishment, but about self-awareness. When you admit, I made a mistake, you are creating space to understand why it happened. You begin to analyze your choices, your motivations, and the circumstances that led to the outcome. This clarity is invaluable because it turns failure from a source of shame into a source of insight. Mistakes are often disguised lessons, teaching you what does not work, what needs adjustment, and what patterns you must break. By owning them, you allow these lessons to enter your life fully, guiding you toward wiser decisions in the future. Ownership of mistakes also transforms your relationship with shame. Shame thrives in secrecy and denial, growing larger the more you try to hide it. When you openly acknowledge your errors, shame loses its grip. You are saying to yourself and the world, I am not perfect, I am human, and I am capable of learning and growing. This declaration is profoundly freeing because it shifts the narrative from being a victim of failure to being an active participant in your growth. You stop being defined by what went wrong and start being defined by your willingness to face the truth and move forward with intention. Another profound impact of owning your mistakes is the trust it builds with others. When people see that you can admit when you are wrong, they respect you more. Vulnerability and honesty create a foundation for authentic relationships. No one trusts someone who always blames, hides, or pretends to be flawless. But someone who can admit their errors, take responsibility, and make amends demonstrates integrity, reliability, and courage. Owning mistakes is not only a personal act of growth, but also a social one. It shows the world that you are accountable, that you can be trusted, and that you are committed to improving yourself. Owning your mistakes also fuels resilience. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks are inevitable. If you are constantly denying or running from your faults, every challenge becomes a source of anxiety and defeat. But if you face your mistakes with courage, you develop the ability to navigate obstacles without fear. You learn that a mistake is not the end of your journey, but a necessary detour that equips you with knowledge, wisdom, and experience. Each time you own a fault, you strengthen your capacity to handle future difficulties. You build confidence, not because you never fail, but because you know that even when you do, you have the strength to rise again. Furthermore, owning your mistakes teaches humility. It reminds you that perfection is an illusion, that growth is ongoing, and that life is a continuous process of learning. Humility is not about thinking less of yourself, it is about thinking realistically and honestly. When you embrace your mistakes, you develop a mindset that is open, adaptable, and willing to evolve. You no longer see failure as shameful, but as an opportunity to improve, to understand yourself more deeply, and to refine the path you are walking. This mindset is essential for long-term success and personal fulfillment because it transforms obstacles into allies and setbacks into teachers. Finally, owning your mistakes allows you to forgive yourself. One of the heaviest burdens in life is the inability to let go of past errors. By acknowledging and accepting your faults, you create space for self-compassion. You can look at yourself with understanding rather than harsh judgment. Forgiveness is not about ignoring your mistakes. It is about integrating them into your story, learning from them, and moving forward without carrying unnecessary guilt or shame. This liberation opens the door to creativity, confidence, and authentic living. When you choose to own your mistakes fully, you transform your life. You stop hiding behind excuses. You stop being controlled by fear, and you step into a space of honesty, growth, and strength. Mistakes become teachers, resilience becomes natural, and trust and authenticity guide your relationships. By embracing your faults, you take the first step toward true freedom, because you are no longer defined by your errors, but by your courage to face them and learn from them. And when you fully own your mistakes, you realize that growth does not come from perfection, but from the bravery to confront and learn from every fault along the way. Authenticity is a word that is often spoken but rarely practiced. Many of us go through life wearing masks, hiding parts of ourselves that we fear are unacceptable, and shaping our actions to meet the expectations of others. We are afraid that if we reveal our true selves, we will be rejected, judged, or misunderstood. But the reality is that authentic connections, the kind that bring meaning and depth to life, can only exist when you show your real self. When you hide behind a facade, relationships remain superficial, interactions lack depth, and opportunities for true understanding and intimacy are lost. It is only when you embrace who you are, your flaws, your mistakes, your vulnerabilities, that real connection becomes possible. Being authentic requires courage because it demands that you be seen exactly as you are, without pretending or performing. This means acknowledging your mistakes, admitting when you do not know something, and expressing your feelings honestly. It is not about sharing everything with everyone, but about being honest in your interactions and presenting a version of yourself that is genuine. Authenticity removes the burden of maintaining a false image. It allows you to stop constantly trying to control how others perceive you, and to focus instead on building relationships grounded in truth. When people encounter your real self, they respond in kind. They are invited to drop their masks, to be real themselves, and to engage in a connection that is mutual, honest, and meaningful. Showing your real self does not guarantee acceptance, and that is part of the challenge. Some people may reject you, and some may not understand you. But this is not a reflection of your worth. It is simply a reflection of differences in perception, experience, and values. Authenticity is not about pleasing others or avoiding discomfort. It is about living in alignment with your truth. When you allow yourself to be seen as you are, you attract the people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with your authentic self. You no longer waste energy trying to fit into molds that do not suit you, and you begin to cultivate relationships that are genuinely nourishing. Authenticity is also essential for personal growth. When you are honest about your faults and vulnerabilities, you can learn from them more effectively. Pretending to be perfect or hiding mistakes prevents self-reflection and stalls progress. But when you acknowledge your imperfections, you create space to understand your actions, to learn from your experiences, and to evolve into a stronger, wiser person. Authentic living requires self-awareness, and self-awareness comes from facing your truth, not from concealing it. Every mistake you admit, every vulnerability you show, and every truth you express builds your capacity to grow and develop as a human being. In relationships, authenticity builds trust. People instinctively recognize honesty and sincerity. When you are real, when you allow your faults and vulnerabilities to show, others feel safe to do the same. This creates an environment where empathy, understanding, and genuine support can flourish. Trust is not built through perfection. It is built through consistent honesty, openness, and integrity. By being authentic, you not only strengthen your relationships, but also inspire those around you to embrace their own authenticity, creating a ripple effect of honesty and connection. Authenticity also frees you from the weight of fear and judgment. When you no longer feel the need to hide your faults or vulnerabilities, the fear of being exposed loses its grip. You become less concerned with how others perceive you and more focused on living in alignment with your values and truth. This freedom allows you to take risks, speak your mind, and pursue your goals without being constrained by the pressure to conform. Authenticity liberates you from the chains of pretense and allows you to live fully, creatively, and confidently. Moreover, showing your real self nurtures self-respect. When you live authentically, you honor your own feelings, desires, and experiences. You stop compromising your values or hiding aspects of yourself to gain approval. This self-respect strengthens your inner confidence and creates a sense of alignment between who you are and how you live. You no longer measure your worth by others' opinions, but by your commitment to honesty and integrity. Embracing your authentic self also helps you navigate life with clarity. When you are honest about your strengths and weaknesses, your decisions are guided by reality, not illusion. You understand your limits, your potential, and your needs. You build a life that reflects who you truly are, rather than a life dictated by expectations, fear, or the desire to impress others. Authenticity brings purpose and meaning because every choice, relationship, and action is grounded in your truth. When you show your real self, you create a life that is genuine, resilient, and deeply connected. You allow yourself to experience the richness of human interaction, to learn from mistakes, and to grow into the person you were meant to be. Authentic connections, trust, and self-respect are not achieved through perfection. They are achieved through courage, honesty, and the willingness to be truly seen. And when you embrace authenticity fully, you realize that your worth is not in hiding your flaws or pretending to be someone else, but in showing up, imperfect and human, and letting life meet you as you truly are. Fear of judgment is one of the most powerful forces that holds people back from embracing their faults and showing vulnerability. From the earliest stages of life, we are conditioned to care deeply about what others think. We are praised when we succeed, criticized when we fail, and rewarded for fitting in rather than standing out. Over time, this creates a subtle but persistent fear that if people see our imperfections, they will reject us, belittle us, or think less of us. This fear is heavy. It seeps into our decisions, our relationships, and the way we show up in the world. But the truth is that the fear of judgment is often far more limiting than the judgment itself. The opinions of others are fleeting, inconsistent, and largely outside of our control. What truly matters is how we see ourselves, how we embrace our humanity, and how we choose to respond to our mistakes. Every time you hide a fault or deny a vulnerability out of fear of judgment, you shrink yourself. You dim the light of your authenticity and silence the voice of your truth. You may achieve temporary safety by conforming or concealing, but this safety is an illusion. The real cost is that you lose opportunities to grow, to connect, and to live fully. Judgment is inevitable in life. It cannot be avoided. The people around you will have opinions, and some of those opinions may be critical. But your worth is not determined by the approval of others. It is determined by your courage to face your faults, to acknowledge your vulnerabilities, and to continue moving forward with integrity and authenticity. Fear of judgment also prevents you from taking risks, the very risks that lead to transformation and growth. When you are overly concerned with how others perceive you, you hesitate to speak up, to pursue your dreams, or to express your feelings. You may avoid making mistakes at all costs, but in doing so, you also avoid learning, creating, and evolving. The truth is that mistakes are part of the journey. They are the stepping stones that guide you toward mastery and self-understanding. The moment you release the fear of judgment, you free yourself to act, to explore, and to embrace the full spectrum of your human experience. One of the most powerful ways to overcome this fear is to cultivate self-acceptance. When you accept yourself fully, faults and all, the opinions of others lose their power over you. You begin to see that judgment is external and often irrelevant to your growth and purpose. It becomes easier to own your mistakes, to admit when you are struggling, and to show vulnerability without hesitation. Self-acceptance does not mean complacency. It means recognizing your worth while remaining committed to growth. When you accept yourself, the fear of judgment is replaced by a quiet confidence, a sense of inner strength that cannot be shaken by external opinions. Embracing vulnerability is deeply connected to overcoming the fear of judgment. Vulnerability requires you to expose parts of yourself that may not be polished, parts that society might criticize, and parts that you have long hidden even from yourself. It is a courageous act because it challenges the very instincts that push you to hide, to conform, and to protect your image. Yet vulnerability is also liberating. It allows you to form deeper connections with others, to be seen for who you truly are, and to experience life in a way that is authentic and meaningful. Each time you choose vulnerability over fear, you take a step closer to freedom from judgment and closer to living fully. it is important to recognize that judgment is often based on ignorance or projection. People project their own fears, insecurities, and limitations onto others. Their opinions say more about them than about you. When you understand this, it becomes easier to separate your self-worth from the judgments of others. You can listen, consider, or even learn from constructive feedback without internalizing criticism that is irrelevant or unhelpful. By maintaining this perspective, fear loses its grip and you can act with clarity, courage, and authenticity. Ultimately, the fear of judgment is a choice, and like all choices, it can be transformed. You can choose to let it control you, or you can choose to see it as a signal to step boldly into your truth. The world is full of voices, but only your voice matters when it comes to your life. When you release the fear of judgment, you no longer live in the shadows. You step into the light, embracing your faults, showing your vulnerability, and experiencing the richness of life with courage and authenticity. And once you let go of this fear, you realize that judgment cannot touch the person who is fully committed to owning their truth and living without apology. Every fault carries a lesson, even when it feels painful or humiliating. Life has a way of presenting challenges, setbacks, and mistakes that seem unfair or overwhelming in the moment. But each of these experiences is an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to become stronger. Too often, we treat mistakes as disasters, as signs that we are failing or that we are not enough. But mistakes are not the enemy. They are mirrors, reflecting the areas where we need growth, understanding, and compassion for ourselves and for others. Each fault, no matter how small or large, is a teacher, and the lessons it offers are essential for developing resilience, wisdom, and clarity in life. When you face a mistake, the first step is reflection. This means pausing and asking yourself, what did this experience reveal? What can I learn from this fault that will make me stronger, wiser, or more prepared for the future? Reflection is not about self-punishment or wallowing in regret. It is about seeing clearly, honestly, and without distortion. Every error contains insight into patterns of thought, behavior, or decision making that can be improved. It may reveal impatience, overconfidence, or a lack of preparation. It may show areas where your understanding was incomplete or your perspective was limited. When you are willing to see your faults in this light, mistakes lose their sting and become tools for growth. Embracing the lessons in faults also teaches humility. Every mistake is a reminder that perfection is an illusion and that growth is a lifelong process. When you accept this truth, you stop fearing failure and start appreciating the value of experience. Mistakes are natural, inevitable, and necessary. They show you where you are human and where there is room to expand, learn, and evolve. Humility allows you to approach life with openness, curiosity, and a willingness to adapt rather than with rigidity, shame, or defensiveness. It is through this openness that the lessons of faults are fully realized and integrated into your being. Moreover, recognizing the lessons in your faults builds resilience. Life is unpredictable, and setbacks are unavoidable. Without the ability to learn from mistakes, every obstacle feels like an insurmountable wall. But when you approach faults as teachers, you transform challenges into opportunities. Each time you face a mistake, you gain experience, perspective, and the inner strength to navigate future difficulties with confidence. Resilience is not about avoiding errors or never failing. It is about facing faults head on, extracting their lessons, and moving forward with greater awareness and courage. Another critical aspect of learning from faults is the development of empathy and understanding. When you acknowledge your own mistakes, you begin to see that everyone struggles, falters, and makes errors. This awareness cultivates compassion for others and reduces judgment. You recognize that faults are not shameful but universal, and that human growth is a collective journey. Empathy allows you to connect more deeply with others, to support them in their struggles, and to create relationships built on understanding rather than pretense. The lessons of faults extend beyond personal growth. They shape how you engage with the world and the people around you. Every fault also carries a lesson in courage. Facing a mistake, admitting it, and learning from it requires bravery. It is easier to deny, hide, or blame, but true courage lies in confronting your errors and allowing them to transform you. This courage strengthens your character, deepens your self-awareness, and empowers you to live authentically. It teaches you that mistakes are not the end of your story, but the turning points that redirect your path, sharpen your judgment, and expand your potential. The lessons found in faults are cumulative. Each experience, each failure, each vulnerability contributes to a broader understanding of yourself and the world. Over time, these lessons shape your decision-making, your relationships, and your ability to navigate life with wisdom. When you embrace faults as teachers, you stop fearing mistakes, stop hiding your vulnerabilities, and begin to see life as a rich tapestry of experiences designed to help you grow. Every misstep, every shortcoming, every moment of uncertainty becomes meaningful because it offers insight, perspective, and an opportunity to evolve into a stronger, more resilient, and more compassionate person. So, take each fault seriously, but do not fear it. Reflect on it, learn from it, and allow it to guide you toward growth. Every mistake carries a lesson, and every lesson moves you closer to the person you are meant to become. And when you fully embrace this truth, you will find that life itself becomes your greatest teacher, and every fault is simply a stepping stone on the path to wisdom and strength. Embracing vulnerability unlocks freedom, creativity, and inner power in ways that few other choices in life can. Vulnerability has been misunderstood for far too long as a weakness, something to avoid at all costs, something to hide behind walls of perfection and control. But the truth is, vulnerability is the gateway to living fully, authentically, and courageously. It is the space where real connection, real growth, and real transformation occur. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you are stepping into your own truth, admitting that you are human, and opening the door to experiences that will shape and strengthen you in ways that hiding never could. Freedom comes when you stop pretending to be invincible. Life is unpredictable, and no one can navigate it flawlessly. When you embrace vulnerability, you no longer feel compelled to maintain an illusion of perfection. You can let go of the fear of judgment, the need to impress, and the pressure to control every outcome. This freedom is liberating because it allows you to act with authenticity rather than obligation, to make choices that align with your values rather than those dictated by fear. The more you embrace vulnerability, the more you realize that hiding your true self comes at a tremendous cost. The cost of missing opportunities, avoiding deep connections, and suppressing your potential. True freedom is born not from invincibility, but from the courage to be real, flaws and all. Vulnerability also fuels creativity. When you are willing to show your authentic self, you break free from the rigid constraints of fear and self-doubt. Creativity thrives in openness, in the willingness to experiment, to make mistakes, and to expose your ideas to the possibility of criticism or failure. The people who create, innovate, and inspire are often those who have embraced their vulnerability fully. They take risks because they understand that imperfection is part of the process. They allow themselves to be seen, to be challenged, and to explore uncharted territory. Vulnerability opens the mind and heart to new perspectives, encourages experimentation, and gives permission for growth that cannot occur in the safe but stagnant space of pretense. Inner power emerges when you face your vulnerabilities instead of running from them. There is a unique strength in acknowledging your fears, insecurities, and limitations, and choosing to act in spite of them. This power is not external, it is deeply internal, rooted in self-awareness, resilience, and integrity. When you confront your vulnerabilities, you learn that discomfort is not dangerous but transformative. You discover the capacity to endure, to adapt, and to thrive even in challenging circumstances. Inner power comes from understanding that you are not defined by your mistakes, fears, or flaws, but by your courage to face them and move forward. Each act of vulnerability strengthens your character and reinforces your confidence in your own ability to navigate life fully and authentically. Vulnerability also deepens your relationships. True connection cannot exist where there is pretense or concealment. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable with others, you create space for mutual understanding, empathy, and trust. People are drawn to authenticity because they recognize it in themselves. By showing your real self, you invite others to do the same. This openness fosters intimacy, collaboration, and meaningful relationships that are built on honesty rather than appearance. The willingness to be vulnerable signals strength, courage, and integrity, and it transforms ordinary interactions into connections that nourish the heart and soul. Furthermore, embracing vulnerability cultivates self-compassion. When you stop hiding your imperfections and admit your weaknesses without judgment, you learn to treat yourself with kindness. You understand that mistakes, fears, and insecurities are not marks of failure, but natural aspects of being human. This self-compassion allows you to grow without the weight of unnecessary guilt or shame, to take risks without paralyzing fear, and to approach life with openness and confidence. Vulnerability and self-compassion are inseparable. Together, they create the foundation for a life lived fully and courageously. Vulnerability transforms setbacks into lessons, obstacles into opportunities, and fear into courage. Every time you allow yourself to be exposed, you reinforce the truth that your worth is not dependent on perfection or approval. You are strong because you are real. You are powerful because you are honest. You are free because you are willing to show up, imperfect and human, and move forward anyway. When you fully embrace vulnerability, you discover that it is not something to fear or avoid. It is the source of freedom, the engine of creativity, and the wellspring of inner power. It allows you to live authentically, connect deeply, and grow continuously. And when you step into this truth, you realize that your courage is not measured by how perfectly you perform, but by how openly you embrace life, flaws and all. As we reach the end of this journey together, remember this: embracing your faults and vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but the mark of true courage. Life will challenge you, mistakes will come, and fear will try to hold you back. But it is in facing these moments honestly, in owning your imperfections, and in showing your real self that you discover your strength, freedom, and inner power. Growth, connection, and authenticity are not found in hiding, but in stepping forward with courage and heart. So take these lessons with you. Let them guide your actions, and allow yourself to live fully, unapologetically, and authentically. May you have the courage to embrace your flaws, the wisdom to learn from every mistake, and the strength to walk your path with confidence and grace. Good luck on your journey, and thank you for taking the time to embrace your truth and unlock the incredible potential within you.